What's up, everyone? Prodigal Son. I got some interesting updates going on here about the war going on. The Israeli Ministry of Defense requested permission for a ground operation in Lebanon. Hezbollah entered the war. It is a main war zone. Barrage of raids by Israeli fighters. The Minister of Defense of Israel, I'm not even going to try to say his name, asked the War Council, Netanyahu, for permission for a ground operation in Lebanon against Hezbollah after yesterday's rapid escalation of the conflicts. The request of the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs was rejected for now, but the developments are not good. Today, the Israeli Ministry of Defense stated that Hezbollah, which is based in Lebanon, has decided to enter the war. Hezbollah decided to join the fighting. He decided to go to war and he's paying a heavy price for it, said Ministry of Defense of Israel. So then, after we saw that, we have everything points to Iran. Bad omen at USS Gerald R. Ford. U.S. fills Northeast with additional THAAD and Patriot third aircraft carrier on the way. The U.S. made additional forces available for deployment. The U.S. has now begun to prepare for the possibility of a confrontation with Iran as they expect a dramatic escalation of the situation in the Middle East. This possibility is becoming more and more visible. This is also the main reason why Israel's ground operation is delayed. The deployment of American forces is not yet complete, as assessments are constantly being made that overturn the previous estimates of the course of the Israeli-Hamas conflict. The Pentagon announced a few hours ago the strengthening of air defenses in the Middle East by sending additional THAAD, thermal high altitude area defense, and Patriot artillery units to locations throughout the Middle East. So, obviously, it's growing. Then we had this, which is not the first time we've heard or seen this, where Putin threatens America about Iran that you won't even have time to see what hit you. Russia became the first country with supersonic strategic forces. Russia is gradually pulling out the aces from its sleeve by putting into service one after the other the sixth generation weapons system, vertically upgrading the firepower. The country's strategic nuclear forces are now becoming supersonic, and this is the major problem for the U.S. Moscow will offer a strategic nuclear shield to both Iran and China in the case of Taiwan. So, bam. Now we're getting news about Taiwan. So, not only are we dealing with Ukraine, Lebanon, Iran, and now they want to mix in Taiwan. So does that mean China is going to jump on Taiwan now? Because we can't cover all these things. I was listening to a guy named Scott Ritter. He is a former Marine, high-ranking Marine. He's also been around all this stuff his whole life. After he got out of the Marines, he still stayed involved with knowing what was going on around the world. He said 20 years ago, America believed, the government, the military, Pentagon believed we could fight 3 wars. 2 wars that were like, kind of full-on wars with 2 countries, say Russia and Iran. And then we could fight a smaller war somewhere over something small, and then once one of the bigger wars was won by us, obviously, we would send the reinforcements to one of those other wars, whichever needed them more. And we could do that then. We can't do that now. Like across the board, in so many ways, we can't do it. For one, most of the recruits that are in the military now, they've all been, how do we say it? Sissified? I'm not trying to put the military down, but we have allowed our leaders, political and militarily, to destroy our military. You see these other countries that are making videos about what it's like to join the Marines or the military in their country, and they're out there doing all this cool stuff, you know. I don't want to call it tough guy stuff, but just normal military stuff, the way you'd want your military to look and run. But then you look at the last videos that we've released from ours, and it's all about transgender bullcrap. I mean, come on. You have to wonder if this wasn't by design. So our military, our recruits, you know, half the boys have, and I'm calling them boys because that's what they are, they have literal wet noodle arms. Like their arms have enough or the same amount of muscle mass as a wet noodle. It's bad. Look at the kids. Look at the boys of today. Like, look at the kids that are just now graduating high school. It's hard to find a man, a teenager that is starting to look like a man. They still all look like they're going into 6th grade. They have no muscle mass. And women will always be women. I'm sorry. But there might be 50 women in the entire world that might be able to beat me up. 15 years ago, there might have been 2 women in the world that could beat me up. I just don't believe I would have been beat up by a girl. I'm sure there are a couple out there, but I was a pretty good fighter. I had a sponsorship for the UFC. So don't, you know, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to fighting. And we can't just rely on women to do everything, no matter what Hollywood likes to say in these TV shows where you see all these gender reversals where all the women are the tough, hard characters and the guys are all wimpy, sissy, crying around, baking cakes. So then we have our military leaders like General Mark Milley that just retired. That guy was a straight up traitor. He literally called China and told them what we were doing when Trump was in. That's straight up traitor. Like, you deserve to hang from a noose for being a traitor, because that's what you get when you're a traitor. You hang. Nobody did anything. And we have treason, because I'll tell you, when Bush... I just lost my headphones, my microphone. When Bush was in, I don't know what he all did with the military, but then when Obama got in, they destroyed it. They did their best, because I'll tell you what, we had Trump get in for 4 years. He did his best, but the work that Obama and Biden did when Obama was president, we had no idea how deep this went or how bad they did, but they have destroyed our military. And they have put in all their leaders that they want, that they know will be treasonous to what would be good for America. So we can't fight these wars. Not only that, let's think back 2 years ago. What did Biden do? Oh, that's right. He left half of the best military equipment and weaponry in Afghanistan. So now our freaking opposition, our enemies, have our weapons. They're no longer fighting with sticks and rocks. They're fighting with the highest grade weaponry America ever had to make. So then let's go down a little further. What Biden do? He gave all of our money and so much of our weapons to Ukraine. Not only that, our strategic oil reserves are lower than ever. How are we going to fight all these guys? We have literally been turned over to crazy men. These men are insane. And they are hell-bent on destruction. At any cost. It doesn't matter where it's at. It doesn't matter if it's here. It doesn't matter if it's there. It doesn't matter to them. So here we are. Putin threatening America with his strategic nuclear weaponry, these supersonic missiles that we cannot fight against. Now, we have been going up trying to practice with lasers. I don't know how good they got with lasers, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to be able to get every single nuclear missile fired at America. And don't doubt for a second that this won't happen, because it could very well possibly happen. Russia is gradually pulling out the aces from its sleeves by putting in service one after the other the 6th generation weapon system, vertically upgrading the firepower. And then whatever this, the country's strategic nuclear forces are now becoming supersonic, and this is the major problem for the U.S. Moscow will offer a strategic nuclear shield. Is that shield meaning the supersonic missiles? Or is that something we don't even know about yet? So then we have Israeli-Egyptian war incident over the Sinai. Netanyahu responded to al-Sisi by shelling an outpost, injuring 9 Egyptian soldiers. When the bombing of an Egyptian outpost border station, Israel responded to the statements of the president of Egypt, al-Sisi, as well as to the joint statement ultimatum he issued together with King Abdullah II of Jordan on Sinai. The development, despite the efforts of both sides to publicly tone down, will trigger developments, as it is not the first time that Israel has bombed in the area of the Rafah border crossing. However, this is the first time that it directly targets an Egyptian position, injuring Egyptian soldiers. Then, just now, surprise mobilization of Russia's nuclear triad over Iran. R-29 RMU Seneva and ICBM Yars launched, deployed for massive retaliatory strike. Red alert for Russian nuclear strategic forces. Putin gave an order for the sudden mobilization of the country's nuclear arsenal as the Israeli ground operation in Gaza is about to begin, and no one knows how it will develop. The Russians have so far not confirmed that this is the annual exercise of the strategic nuclear deterrent forces called GROM, which causes particular concern. According to Russian information, NATO will further strengthen its forces in the eastern Mediterranean in the next few hours, which accelerated the developments. Russia held a training exercise of a massive nuclear strike. So, the other day, we did a secret, not so secret nuclear test in Nevada of a new nuclear device. I'm not trying to get conspiratorial here, but if you've ever watched I Pet Goat 2, we have our bombers nuking what looks like a position in Iran. Now, will we see that happen in real life? That's what I'm watching for. I believe we are going to nuke Iran. My worry is that Russia will then nuke us or let North Korea hit us with one of their EMPs. This is really escalating fast and bad. And I'm not saying like to go buy a bunch of food from the store or whatever, or act like crazy people and buy a bunch of toilet paper. But I would suggest getting some things that you think you might need to survive for a few weeks. Yes, get a little bit of food. Don't buy crazy amounts of food, because then you don't leave anything for anyone else. And as much as this is scary, we can't be selfish at the same time. We got to think of everyone. Like we've already seen what selfishness does to a country. Look where we're at now. Look just a couple years back when you couldn't buy toilet paper for no good reason but insanity. So don't do that. Get things that purify water. Get things that can start a fire. Get some food. but get some other stuff that you might need. Get a gun, get some machetes, get whatever you think will best fit your family in case of an emergency. Because this is getting real, real fast. Now, I have an EMP shield on my truck, so if we get hit with an EMP, my truck should be fine. But that, yeah, that helps. That's a big, big help. But if there's no gas being pumped, it only does me so good. So, my worry is having enough food, enough water, a way to purify water, and a way to start a fire. I'm lucky to have a fireplace in my house, so I will always be able to stay warm and cook food. But not everyone has that. You can get a generator, go to Harbor Freight, buy a generator. You can get solar generators, you can get gas generators, you can get ones that run on propane or gas. And I know all that costs money, but this is getting real. And I've been saying for years and years and years that all this stuff was about to come. Now, I didn't know what order it would come in, and I didn't know exactly what time it would happen, but I've always believed these times were coming soon. I've been a prepper for years because I always knew this time would come. Now, we also need to pray. We need to pray for peace. We need to pray for cooler heads to prevail. Because prayer, I don't care what you think, prayer is huge. Prayer, if everyone turned to God and started to pray, I believe we could get out of all of this stuff and get our lives back. Not in the way we had them once before, because we'd have to change our ways, which is, again, something I've always said. There's so many things we could stop as a country, like abortions. I'm not going to get into all that. Point is God will only put up with your country being a certain way for so long until he'll allow destruction. And I believe Biden is that destruction. We got lucky to be given, whether Trump, was 100% not controlled by the elites or not, I don't know. But he did the things that we needed done in this country for the most part. And that's what we need again. And that was, like, in my opinion, God's last hurrah for us. Like, hey, here's 4 years, straighten up or I'm going to take everything. We didn't straighten up, and then we are now losing, literally, like, Biden is giving away everything of ours. All of our money, all of our weapons, destroying our military. I mean, come on. I mean, how can people see this at this point? So, anyway, sudden mobilization of Russian nuclear forces. Russia has conducted exercises of its nuclear deterrent forces, chaired by Putin, the Kremlin announced. Under the leadership of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Putin, training took place with the forces and means of the land, sea, and air elements of the nuclear deterrent forces. So does that mean they're expecting a nuke from us also? That they're getting ready for this? Because that's what it sounds like. Sounds like they're more worried about us nuking them than they are about nuking us. During the training, practical launches of ballistic missiles and cruise missiles were carried out, the Kremlin said in a statement. During the exercises, a Yars intercontinental ballistic missile, intercontinental, that means from one continent to another, missile was launched from the Cosmodrome at the Kura Missile Test Site, Kamchatka. I'm sure I murdered that. And additionally, a missile was launched from the Barents Sea by the strategic nuclear submarine Tula. Two 95 MS long-range strategic bombers which launched, man, am I having a hard time speaking today, which launched cruise missiles also took part in the exercises, and the objectives were fully achieved. He also said the Russian Air Force would conduct complex nuclear strike drills in response to an enemy nuclear strike. So, these governments, they know what another government's doing when we're, we're just going about our day. But this is what they do. They pay attention to what each other is doing. So that tells me that they believe America's about to nuke someone. Then this X post says the annual Brum strategic nuclear exercise under the leadership of Putin is now underway in Russia. Blah, 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 blah. Massive counter-offensive nuclear strike scenario. The chiefs of the Russian General Staff and the Ministry of Defense have told Vladimir Putin about conducting a drill that involves conducting a nuclear strike in response to an enemy's nuclear attack against Russia. So this goes on just to talk about what they're doing, the launching of these missiles and deterrence of a nuclear attack. Yeah, that's all this is saying down here. So I will keep watching. Like even down here, related articles. Here, U.S. message B-1B on virtual bombing mission of Russian positions in Baltic, intercepted by Su-27. No, I didn't see this one. U.S. message B-1B on virtual bombing mission of Russian positions in Baltic, intercepted by the Su-27. All right, I was going to try to end this. Let's see what this says. Russia's defense ministry announced that Russia's Su-27 fighter jets have taken off to intercept 2 U.S. bombers and a drone. And this was today. According to the relevant information, 2 B-1-B strategic bombers of the U.S. Air Force approached the airspace of the Russian Federation from the Baltic Sea, and a Global Hawk unmanned aerial vehicle approached it from the Black Sea. In both cases, a Su-27 fighter jet took off to intercept them. Both the B-1-B and Global Hawk bombers changed direction and left the area, the Russian Defense Ministry said. Several engagements between Russian and Western aircraft over the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea have reported in recent months, which I was going to say. There's been a lot of activity there over the last, year. The B-1B bombers are currently in Europe and stationed at a Danish air base, conducting patrols with Danish F-16 fighter jets in the wider area. The development comes as a telecommunications cable connecting Sweden to Estonia and the Baltic Sea was damaged, almost simultaneously with damage to the undersea pipeline and cable connecting Finland to Estonia earlier this month. Then this tweet, during a recent bomber task force mission, 2 B-1B Lancer aircraft joined forces with Danish F-16s, showcasing collaboration at its finest. Yes, at its finest. Let's all congratulate all this craziness. So that's just more about what that says. NATO war preparations. Britain deploys 20,000 troops in Northern Europe. Sweden, Estonia telecommunications cable tapped. Finnish from Finland. Intelligence on Baltic connector explosion. Threat of Russian operations against infrastructure has increased. NATO countries' infrastructure hit on Nord Stream anniversary Baltic connector pipeline. So this is all about that pipeline that got blown up. Dozens of NATO ships off the coast of Latvia and Estonia. Bombers flew over the Baltic Sea. Italy's 535 fighters clashed with Russians' Su-30s. Polish army in battle formations with Russia. Patriot batteries deployed in Warsaw. 32nd Fighter Wing takes over protection to Suwalki corridor. Alright, so that was the last article I'm going to cover right now. Says Erdogan moves to the final phase of the Turkish plan for Gaza. Hamas is not a terrorist organization, but a patriotic organization of liberators. Man, I'm sorry. I apologize for my lack of being able to talk. Some days are better than others for me. This is more just to get urgent news out than to sit here and just yak into the microphone about something. This is important. This could go off at any time. I mean, I'm literally looking overhead when I'm outside, waiting for something to fly over my head that shouldn't be there. That's how, ready I am for all this to go off. I pray in the name of Jesus that this all simmers down, but this is escalating fast, and it's about to boil over. So go out and get ready now. Be ready. Have a little something set up for your family so that you guys aren't caught off guard. And then if you don't end up needing it, don't worry. This isn't over. It might go away for a little bit, hopefully, if we get lucky. But eventually, this will be World War III. This is biblical. This is from the Bible. Now, it's not quite supposed to happen yet. So that's why I believe that this might simmer down, or this might start and just brew and brew and brew, or it could be lights out. The worst of the worst. We need to be ready for any situation. I will keep the updates coming. If you see anything pop up from me, you might want to check it out, because we have no idea what's going to happen next. Be safe out there. And pray.